So for this lesson, we're going to learn prefixes, what that kilo and that centi and that milli and that hecto mean. We will learn how to convert between kilo and centi and hecto. We're not going to deal in this lecture so much with English. I think English is one of those things, like Cameron said, I use it daily, I understand it. So I'm kind of going to do a quick one on English tomorrow, but we're not going to deal heavily with it because I think you understand it simply because you use it. So, English versus metric. The English is measured in inches, feet, yards, and miles, which is what we use here in America and only here in America. And metric is measured in meters. And this is if we're doing lengths. If we're doing weights, we have grams, okay? And we have what we call a base unit. And for length, it's meters. For weight, it's grams. And we'll talk about all the different base units later. And then we change our measurements based upon prefixes. So the base unit stays the same. It'll always have a meter in it if we're doing lengths, but the prefix will change. So when we convert in English, we have to know that 1 foot equals 12 inches, and that 3 feet equal 1 yard, and that 1,760 yards equal a mile. And that's just expected of us to know. And how many feet are there in a mile? Anybody know that off the top of their head? 5,000 something, yeah. Okay, I honestly can't tell you that I remember it.
5,280.
There you go, Kathy knows it.
Because we didn't have metrics when I was going to school. We only had to learn the English. We were bad.
Okay, and it was hard, wasn't it, Kathy? It's not something simple, it's a memory thing. It's not,
Yeah, it's
it doesn't have quick, easy tools to it like we're going to talk about in metric. It is definitely, how am I supposed to know 1 foot equals 12 inches? That just, how is that working?
Yeah.
Okay? The metric is simply the moving of the decimal place and adding zeros where needed. That's all it is. It's not that 1 equals 12 and 3 equals 1 and remembering what equals what. It's simply moving a decimal place. So when Cameron says to me, well, we use English so it's easier. It's not easier. It's just something we use more often. Okay? How many of you in the future would like to be a doctor, a nurse, or something in the medical field? Do I have any medical field people? Caitlin. Her world will very shortly become metric because that's all they deal with. Okay? So here are your prefixes and what they stand for and what their abbreviation is. So kilo is 1,000, and we label it with a K. So we could have kilometer, kilogram, and it's 1,000, not TH, 1,000, just a D. Then we have hecto, which is 100, and he's represented with a simple H. So we would see like HM for hectometer, HG for hectogram. Then we have deca, which is 10, and he's represented with a DA. I guess they could be she's too, but we'll say they're he's for now. Okay, so it would be DAG for decagram or DAM for decameter. Then we have deci, which is our tenths place, so the first number after the decimal, and he's represented with just a simple D. So DM would be decimeter. Evan, do you have a question? Wonderful. That you made in science. Okay, because science uses this. Okay, and you will probably see this somewhere in ag as well, I'm guessing. Good chance of ag having this as well. Centi then is 100th and represented with a simple C. And then milli is thousandths represented by the M. So we've all seen this before, we've probably all used it before, but converting from one to the other seems to be our issue. So if we know that we're measuring in lengths and we have a meter, we call that the basic unit. And we want to know how many millimeters we have, we simply take our decimal place and move it to the place of that prefix. How many of you what I just read confused you? Be honest. Kelsey's like, Max is, yes, okay, Caitlin. So, when I read it like that, it's like, huh? What are you talking about, Mrs. Miller? How about if I connected the prefix to the number line or the number place value? Let's see here. So if we have kilo, we know we're at the thousands place. If we have hecto, we're at the hundreds place. If we have deca, we're at the tens place. If we're in our basic unit and ones, and then we have our decimal place after that, right? And if we have deci, we're at tenth, centi, hundredth, and milli thousandths. All of a sudden, our prefixes line up to our number line. So if I told you I wanted you to go from the ones unit, the ones place, to the thousandths place, how many zeros would you add, Max? To the thousands.
Thousands.
Yes.
We'd add 3 zeros.
We'd add 3 zeros. So we had one. We may have had one here, and if we want to make it a thousands, we would add 3 zeros. Yes? Does that make sense? So if I had 1,000 kilos and I wanted to know how many basic units there were, how many zeros would I add? If I'm here, yes, so my decimal is here, and I want to go 1, 2, 3 places backwards, how many zeros do I add? Somebody say it out loud. How many places did I move? 3, so how many zeros? So if I have kilometers of 1,000 and I want to know how many meters that equals, wouldn't that give me how many meters? Yes? Because don't I want to move my place value back 3? So don't I need to move this 1, 2, 3 places and add zeros? Simple moving of my decimal place and replacing with zeros. So if I have 10 meters, which is what we call our basic unit, and I want to know how many millimeters I would have, who can tell me what direction to move my decimal? Caitlin. What? We move it to the right, and how many places? So we're here, right? Does everyone see that? That's where our decimal's at. And we want to put it here. We want to put it behind our milli. So we go 1, 2, 3. How many zeros do we add? 3. Does that make sense? How many of you go, okay, now what you said, I understand. All we're doing is moving our decimal. If you understand that, put your hand in the air. If you don't understand it, don't put your hand in the air.